Fine. So today we will start our discussion on the basically the halogen family. So halogen family you are aware of. It is composed of the fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine. Okay, and we have their electronic configuration mentioned here. So these bromine and iodine are the ones which are having completely filled D subshells, and then astatine is the one that is coming after the filling up of the F subshell. Coming to the general electronic configuration of the halogen family, from these electronic configuration, it is pretty clear that the valence shell general electronic configuration for halogen is ns2 np5. So if we look at this particular configuration, we find that it is just one electron short for the noble gas configuration. So that means if just one electron it is able to accept, it will reach a noble gas configuration. And that is why most of the members of the halogen family, they exhibit an oxidation state of -1. So most of the halogen members shows an oxidation state of -1, and the reason being just one electron is able to, just accepting one electron, these halogens are able to show a noble gas configuration. That is why the most common oxidation state exhibited by halogen family is -1. Now, here in this particular table, you find that I have written down the not oxidation states of various halogens. So fluorine, they only exhibit -1 oxidation state and no positive oxidation state it shows. The reason being it is the most electronegative atom, and to show a positive oxidation state, it need to give off the electron. And fluorine being highly electronegative, it is reluctant to give an electron. Apart from that, the higher oxidation state it isn't able to show. That is because it doesn't have a D subshell to expand its valency. And that is why fluorine only shows a -1 oxidation state. Now coming to chlorine, you find that apart from the -1 oxidation state, in all these cases like chlorine, bromine, and iodine, what you find is that apart from the -1 oxidation state, you have higher oxidation state like +1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Similarly, you find the same with the bromine and the iodine. Now, you would be surprised how we are able to get a higher oxidation state in all these elements. So for that, we just look into as I have mentioned here, the higher oxidation state exhibited by chlorine, bromine, and iodine. They are as a result of the D availability of the D subshell. Okay, because of the availability of the D subshell, these elements such as chlorine, bromine, and iodine, they are able to show higher oxidation state. For example, if this is the just a general subshell configuration, so you have ns2 np5, okay, and then chlorine, bromine, and iodine, all of them have the D subshell available to them. So when it is in this state, ground state, it can easily accept the electron to form -1 oxidation state. Apart from that, it can easily share this electron with the other atom to form a +1 oxidation state. And that is why chlorine and bromine and iodine, you see a +1 oxidation state possible. Now, when it is the first excited state happening, okay, so when I do the first excitation, when I unpair these electrons and excite them to a higher D subshell, now this particular state of the element can form three covalent bonds because of the three unpaired electrons present in them. And therefore, it can show a oxidation state of +3. Okay, so in their first excited state, they can show a higher or a covalent oxidation state of +3. And if it undergoes second excitation, whereby this electrons are unpaired to excite it into the d subshell, now it can form 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 covalent bonds. And as a result, the oxidation state possible in this case is +5. Further, if you excite this unpaired electron as well, you can get a oxidation state possible in is a +7 oxidation state. So as you can see here, we can easily explain the higher oxidation state of +3, +5, and +7 oxidation state through these excited states that these elements can achieve. Apart from that, you will see certain oxidation state as such as +4 and +6. Okay, in all these elements, you see an oxidation state of +4 and +6. These +4 and +6 oxidation state you usually find in interhalogen compounds or halogen oxides. Now, interhalogen compounds we will be discussing shortly, and just from the name itself, you might have understood what is the compound that you're talking about. It is a compound that is formed between two different halogen atoms. That's why it's called interhalogen compounds. Okay, so you see interhalogen compounds, and in halogen oxides you see oxidation state of +4 and +6, and that is why you see these are some of the compounds written down here are halogen oxides. Okay, so ClO2, here the chlorine is having an oxidation state of +4, then here also +4, here the chlorine has an oxidation state of +6, and here as well bromine is having an oxidation state of +6. So in these compounds only you will find these higher oxidation states such as +4 and +6. The other oxidation state of +3, +5, and +7, these are basically the oxidation state that these elements form when they form covalent compounds. Okay, so these are kind of covalent oxidation state which are formed as a result of covalent compounds being formed when these elements react with the other atoms. Okay, now if we look at the ionization energy given here, okay, what do you find? You find a smooth decrease in the ionization energy as you move down the group. So there is a decrease in the ionization energy as you move down the group. So iodine is having the least ionization energy value, and that is why because of the least ionization energy in the case of iodine, iodine can also exhibit a +1 oxidation state as well as +3 oxidation state quite easily compared to the rest of the elements, like compared to fluorine, chlorine, or bromine. Iodine can easily form a positive oxidation state, and that is the reason why these iodine are kind of more electropositive in their nature. That is because of the very low ionization energy of the iodine element. Moving to the electronegativity value, these are also self-explanatory. As you can see, as expected, the highest electronegativity value will be that for the fluorine, and then chlorine, bromine, and iodine. So you have a smooth decrease in the electronegativity value as you move down the group in the case of halogen family. Now, if we take into consideration the electron affinity, uh, what you see is that from chlorine to iodine, what you see is a smooth decrease in the electron affinity value. Like it is 348, then there is a decrease to 324, then it is to 295. So what you see is the smooth decrease in the electron affinity value, okay, as you move down the group. But there is an abnormal thing here, and that is there is a significant reduction or a partial reduction, not very much significant, but significant enough to show a very low value for electron affinity in the case of fluorine. This is quite contrary because fluorine being highly electronegativity, we expect it to have a higher electron affinity value. But electron affinity value for fluorine is is lesser than that for the chlorine. Can any of you quickly say the answer why that is so? Because I think this you have already learned in your smaller section. So I hope some of you might be knowing why that reason. Can any of you quickly say to me the answer?
Fluorine has no d orbital, so chlorine
Mhm,
has in chlorine there will be interelectronic repulsion.
mhm. Mm, okay. First of the thing is that what do you mean by electron affinity? Electron affinity is the energy released when an element accepts the electron to form a negatively charged ion. So that is called as the electron affinity. So energy released. So electron affinity for chlorine is higher than that for the fluorine. That is because what Sandra was saying is right, but she was telling for the chlorine. Actually, when fluorine accepts the electron, it is taking the electron into the 2p subshell. Okay, because in fluorine we have 2s and 2p. Okay, so when it accepts the electron, it is accepting the electron into the 2p subshell, and 2p is the smallest subshell. Okay, and it's very closely packed. So what happens when an electron is added here? There would be a great amount of electronic repulsion happening because of the small size of the fluorine atom. Because of the small size of fluorine atom, the electrons would be pretty close to each other. And so when the extra electron is added, the greater amount of electronic repulsion will happen in the case of fluorine. Okay, so it will highly disfavor the acceptance of an electron, which will cause a higher degree of electronic repulsion in the case of fluorine. However, chlorine, since the filling of the electron is happening in the 3p orbital, and 3p is more diffused or more larger in size, and therefore the electronic repulsion is considerably reduced. Okay, so that is why you see a significant reduction in the electronic affinity value in the case of fluorine when compared to a chlorine, as opposed to their electronegativity value. Okay, and this kind of questions I have frequently seen in many examinations. Okay, so just keep that thing in your mind. Okay, so let us move further. Then what we see here is a bond energy. So bond energy means we know that these elements always exist in their elemental form, that is X2. Okay, so when I'm talking about bond energy, I'm talking about the bond that is formed between the two halogen atoms. So what do you see here is the bond energy, you see a smooth decrease in the bond energy as you move down the group. Okay, but in fluorine, the decrease in bond energy is very significant. Okay, which is opposed to what we would expect, because as we know why the bond energy is decreasing down the group, because the size of the atoms are becoming bigger and bigger. So the overlap um, between the orbitals, the sigma bond, formation, for the sigma bond formation, the orbital overlap that is taking place is more diffused in nature because of the larger size of the halogen atom. So because of that, what happens? The bond strength, bond length will increase, and thereby the bond strength will reduce as you move down the group. So if that reason, if we take into consideration, the fluorine should be the highest bond energy, but it is significantly very, very smaller. Okay, now we are going to see why that is so. We are going to reason out why there is a significant reduction in the bond energy in the case of F2. Now, coming to the standard reduction potential, if so, these are reduction potential. Reduction potential means when the electron is accepted to form an ion. Okay, so the corresponding oxidation potentials, okay, will have a higher negative. So these are basically the values here are standard electrode potential. So these are basically reduction potential. So reduction potential values here is very, very high for fluorine. Okay, that means the oxidation potential value is very, very high for the fluorine in comparison to the other elements. Okay, now why that is so is also we are going to study here, because we know that the electron affinity is high for chlorine. So we expect that the chlorine should be having a higher oxidation potential, but what we see here is the oxidizing power is higher for the fluorine atom. Now, I'm constantly using oxidizing potential, so you are getting confused. So here, what is given is the standard reduction potential. So standard reduction potential means what? An X2 when it accepts electron, okay, to give you the X minus. Okay, this is the standard reduction potential value. Okay, so these are the standard reduction potential values given. Okay, so the oxidizing power is that which has a higher E naught value. Okay, because oxidizing power means it is able to accept more easily, more quickly. So higher positive value means they are able to accept it very, very quickly, because if the E value is highly positive, then we know delta G is what? Minus NF E naught. Okay, so higher positive value means delta G is highly negative. So this reaction is highly favorable for the fluorine atom in comparison to the other elements. But if we look at the electron affinity value, the electron accepting tendency is highest for the chlorine. So we expect chlorine to have a higher oxidation potential, but we see it is the opposite. That is, the fluorine is having a higher oxidation potential. Now, why there is this anomaly that you find in respect is what we are going to discuss in the next slide. So I hope you're able to understand what I am trying to make you understand. So here we talked about two different anomalies. One was regarding the bond energy. Okay, we see an abnormal decrease in the bond energy of the fluorine. Then coming to the standard reduction potential, we find that the oxidizing power of the fluorine is higher, though we expect chlorine to be higher because the electron affinity value is higher for the chlorine. But chlorine, it is lower. Now, why that is so is what we are going to discuss in the next slide. Okay, so during this session, if you have any doubts, please do keep that in your in your chat box, so that in the end of the class we can discuss these. Okay, so here I am talking about the oxidizing power. So oxidizing power means the ability to accept the electron. So in general, we will write the halogens in its elemental form will accept the electron to form the corresponding anion. Okay, so we know that the various halogens have different forms, like solid, you know, iodine is what we find in the solid form. Okay, and bromine is the liquid form only. Okay, and chlorine and the fluorine, they are basically the gases. Okay, so I have written a general equation here where X2, when it accepts electron, it forms the corresponding I minus. So this value, that is the enthalpy change happening for this reaction, will give me a brief idea about the oxidizing power of the corresponding halogens. Okay, so how can I know this particular value? There is no table that gives me directly these values. Okay, so I need to find it using some other method. So we know that whenever we have any enthalpy uh, which we need to determine, but we don't have values for it, we usually prefer to use Born-Haber cycle to arrive at the corresponding value. For example, here, this is the reaction that I have written here. That is X2 accepting the electron to form the X minus. That is X2 in its aqueous state accepts the electron to form X minus aqueous. Okay, this is the reaction whose delta H, the enthalpy change, is what we have to calculate here. We do not have a value for this. So Born-Haber cycle means we will choose another pathway to get from this region to this region. Okay, so when I come using an alternate pathway for which I know the values of enthalpy, then I can easily calculate this particular delta E value. So starting with, if suppose it is iodine, so iodine would be in the solid state. So initially, from this, you know that it has to reach to a, it is not in the diatomic state, but rather it is in the atomic state. I mean to say, not in the X2 state, but in the X state. So that means first I have to change this into a gaseous state. Only then I can break them into two atoms. Okay, so if it is solid iodine, we have to start from the solid state. So initially I2 solid would be fused into a I2 liquid, then it would be vaporized into a I2 gaseous state. Okay, and then you will do the dissociation to form the corresponding atoms. Okay, and then the atom in the gaseous state can accept the electron. This is electron affinity, that is accepting of the electron in the gaseous state to form the X minus. So that value we always know. Okay, and then one X minus gaseous state is formed, you can hydrate it to get the X minus aqueous. Okay, so all these values are available with us, that is fusion value, vaporization value, dissociation value, electron affinity value, even hydration value for almost all the ions are known in various tables. Okay, so this connectivity would help us to decipher the approximate value for the delta E. Okay, so that is why delta E would be what, half of, because we have to divide it into two. So half of delta HF, half of delta V, then half of delta HT. Here it is, you can write it as plus EA as well as plus delta H, because here they have put negative because electron affinity and delta H hydration, they are exothermic process. So automatically the plus sign would be converted into minus. So even if you write positive, it is perfectly fine, because ultimately when you put the values here, it will automatically become negative. Okay, so delta E can be obtained easily by adding all these values. Okay, so that is what it is being done in this particular table here. So for iodine, we know we will have a delta H fusion, vaporization, dissociation, electron affinity, and delta H hydration. But when case of bromine, we do not have a delta H fusion, because bromine in its elemental state is a liquid. So we will have a delta H vaporization. So this value would be there for bromine. Then we have dissociation would be there. Then we have a electron affinity and then hydration. And chlorine and fluorine, they are basically gaseous, so we will not have these terms. We will only have the dissociation terms. So dissociation terms are there here. So we will ultimately add all these values to get the value for the delta E. Now what we find here is the highest delta E value is that for the negative delta E value is for the fluorine atom. And that gives an indication why fluorine is having a higher oxidizing ability. And that is because of its high enthalpy change that is occurring when it accepts the electron to go into its aqueous ionic state. Okay, now you have to like why there is a high value for the delta E in the case of fluorine. If we would like to look from this table, find out a reason for it. If we concentrate why this value became highly negative, what you will see is that it might be like if you compare this hydration values, high negative hydration is available for the fluorine. Okay, high heat of hydration is available for the fluorine, and this high heat of hydration for fluorine can be easily understood because of fluorine being smaller ion. Okay, fluorine is a smaller ion, so we know that smaller ions will have higher charge density, and therefore it will have a higher heat of hydration that we saw in the case of the lithium ion ion, beryllium ion ion. And in those cases, we saw that they have a very high heat of hydration, and that is because of their small size and therefore high charge density. And this is one of the important contributing factor, which is actually making this value highly negative. Another contributing factor would be this particular value, that is the bond dissociation, that is X2 breaking into 2X atoms. Okay, so that bond dissociation is the least positive for fluorine atom. Other cases it is pretty higher value. So this bond dissociation and this high heat of hydration are the reason why you get a very high negative value, negative enthalpy change for the oxidation of fluorine to its corresponding aqueous ion. Okay, so why the fluorine exhibit a higher oxidation potential? You can find from this table there are two important reasons. One is the F2 has a low enthalpy of dissociation. So that means this dissociation, that is F2 breaking into two gaseous F atoms, okay, that dissociation is very low in the case of fluorine atom. Now, why that is so? That is because of the weakness of the FF bond. Now, why these FF bonds are weak? You will ask me, why FF bonds are weak? There are two reasons that are given for it. Compared to the other atoms like BR, BRM, അതുപോലെ iodine-iodinumai compare ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ, there are two reasons given in JD Lee. One of the reason is that these elements, since they have the D subshell, okay, they have the D subshell, they can form multiple bonds. Okay, a p pi d pi kind of multiple bonds are possible in these cases, which is not possible in the case of F because of the lack of d orbitals. That was the reason given by Mullikins, but it is not very well accepted. Okay, the most accepted explanation for this is that fluorine being smaller in size, okay, there would be a greater electronic repulsion between the, because we know if we draw the Lewis dot structure, you will have lone pair present on these fluorine atom. So fluorine being smaller, these lone pairs would come in close proximity to each other. So when these lone pairs that are present on the fluorine atom come closer to each other, what will happen? There would be a greater electronic repulsion between the lone pair will happen, and that will weaken the bond. Because of the electronic repulsion between the lone pair will weaken the FF bond, and therefore these bonds are susceptible to breaking. Okay, and this makes F2 among the other halogen. F2 is the most reactive. Okay, F2 is the most reactive, and that reactivity is basically because of this weakness of the F2 bond, and that weakness is arising because F being smaller atom, the lone pairs are in close proximity, and therefore they exhibit higher repulsion among themselves, in higher repulsion, electronic repulsions. So as a result, the FF bonds become highly weaker. So that is the accepted explanation. This explanation also you will find in some of the books, but in Puri and Sharma, they have given this particular explanation, but this is not widely accepted. This was given by Mulliken. And this particular explanation of lone pair was given by some, I remember correctly, it is Colson. Okay, Colson gave this particular explanation, and J.D. Lee says that this particular explanation is what is being widely accepted. Okay, now the second reason, as we just now said, it is the high free hydration energy because of the smaller size of the F minus ion, because of which there is a higher hydration energy possible. So all these two reasons are the one that is giving a higher oxidation potential value for the F2, which is opposite to our opposite to the fact that chlorine is having a higher electron affinity. That is, it has a more tendency of accepting the electron to go into a Cl minus state. Even though chlorine has a very high electron affinity value, but the oxidation potential is more higher for F2. That is because of the high hydration, heat of hydration of the F minus ion, and the lower dissociation for the F2 molecule. Okay, so both these factors are contributing towards the higher oxidation potential for the fluorine atom. Moving further, coming to the hydrides of halogen. This is another topic that you have to study here. That is hydrides of halogen. So the most common hydrides of halogen that is formed is the hydroiodic acid, hydrobromic acid, hydrochloric acid, and hydrofluoric acid. So these are these you are pretty familiar with. They are all acidic in nature. Okay, and if we place them according to their acid strength, we find that HI is the highly acidic, and the HF is the least acidic among the acidity. So now this is quite opposing to the fact that here the reason is because the HI bond strength is weaker compared to the HF bond strength, so they are easy to be cleaved to form the H plus ion. But this particular order of acidity is kind of opposing to the fact that HF, because of the high electronegativity difference between the hydrogen and fluorine, should be more ionic in nature, and therefore the ionization of HF into H plus and F minus should be highly feasible. Okay, and also the fact that the ionization should be feasible because F minus having a higher value of hydration energy. Okay, so these favorable factors, that is the highly ionic nature and the high hydration energy of fluorine, should make HF to be the highly acidic in comparison to HI, because HI, I minus being larger in size, it is having a lower hydration energy value, but still they are more acidic than the HF. Now, what is the reason for this particular thing? This also, again, we will use the Born-Haber cycle to explain the reasons for it. Okay, so basically, if we talk about their acidic nature, we are usually considering a reaction that is HX because acidity will be done in aqueous solution, so HX in its hydrated form, it will dissociate to form H plus and X minus. So the enthalpy change for this would be represented by delta H. Okay, so value of this delta H will give us an indication about the acid strength. Okay, so a higher negative value for the delta H would be telling us that why we have a higher acidity for HI in comparison to HF. Okay, so if we try to, since this diagram you might not be able to quickly answer, so I made this once again, this Born-Haber cycle. So basically first is, so let me use the pen here. So here we are trying to calculate the delta H for this reaction. This is the basic reaction, that is the HX, okay, is in its hydrated form, it is dissociating to give you H plus and X minus. Okay, so this delta H is what you're trying to calculate. So I have represented it as delta HT. So the HX hydrated dissociating to give you H plus and X minus hydrated form. So this delta HT is what you have to calculate, because this will give an indication. A higher negative value will give will be more acidic, lower negative value will be less acidic. So how to get to so this is the usual pathway. Now we have to get values, because this value we won't find in any of the thermodynamic tables. In any of the thermodynamic table we won't find this particular value, so we have to find an alternate route. So what we do, we will use this HX hydrated formula. So ആദ്യം നമ്മൾ ഇത് എന്ത് ചെയ്യും, dehydrate ചെയ്യും. So delta H dehydration to give you HX gas. Okay, next step is dissociation, okay, into H atom and X atom. Okay, and thereafter the next step would be H in H plus state ionization energy. So there would be one ionization energy here. Then X gas state X minus gas state you will have a electron affinity value. Okay, then another value would be there, that is hydration of these ions that is produced, that is H plus gas and X minus gaseous state ne hydrate cheyyumbol ee oru value mudi varum. So if you want to calculate the delta H total here, delta H total നമ്മൾ calculate ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ that would be equal to delta H dehydration, okay, plus delta H dissociation, okay, plus you will have these values, the delta H or because I have not used ionization energy than I used here, so you will have a ionization energy value, okay, and then you will have a electron affinity value, okay, and then you will also have a delta H hydration value. So these values, that is delta H dehydration, dissociation, ionization energy, electron affinity values, okay, and delta H hydration, all these things are known from the thermodynamic table. So we can easily calculate this particular delta HT. So if we now look at this particular table, I hope you're able to see these tables pretty clearly. I'll just little bit big zoom it a little bit. So if you see this table here, you will have a delta H dehydration, dissociation, ionization energy, electron affinity, and then enthalpy of hydration. Okay, for all these hydrohalous acid, you will find all the values of the corresponding delta H. Okay, and then we add them together to get the value for the delta H total. So what we are trying to calculate here is the delta H total. Okay, so when I try to calculate this delta H total here, what you find here is it is highly negative for what the hydroiodic acid. Hydroiodic acid lana, it is highly negative, and that is why HI is highly acidic in comparison to hydrofluoric acid. Now, we need to understand why you have lower value for the delta H total in the case of fluorine, okay, in the case of HF. Okay, what are all the contributing factors? One of the contributing factor is the enthalpy of dissociation. So enthalpy of dissociation is a positive quantity. So this will reduce the negativity of the delta H total. So this is pretty high for the case of HF in comparison to HI. It's almost like double, okay, compared to HI. So this is one of the factors why you have a lesser acidity for the HF. Another contributing factor is the enthalpy of dehydration. So enthalpy of dehydration, if you consider, it is again an endothermic process. So that is also having a very highly positive value in comparison to the other HX, okay, HCl ialum, HBr ialum, HI ialum. അതിൽ തമ്മിൽ compare ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ HF is having a higher enthalpy of dehydration. So these factors, one is enthalpy of dissociation and the enthalpy of dehydration, are contributing to the reduction of the negative value of the delta H total. Another thing is, we already know that the electron affinity value of the fluorine is also very comparatively lesser, okay, and because of all of these three factors, the enthalpy of dissociation ialum, enthalpy of dehydration ialum, or enthalpy of electron affinity ialum, LM factor is contributing to reduction in the negative value. Though we see a very high hydration and heat of hydration for fluorine atom in comparison to iodine, okay, even though it is highly negative, this is overcome by all these positive values, high positive values for the HF, and that is why they are lesser acidic in comparison to the HI, that is hydroiodic acid. Okay, so that is the reason we see a great reduction in the HF acidity in comparison to HI. So I have written down some points here. So one of the point is, as we discussed, it is the enthalpy of dissociation. So enthalpy of dissociation shows that HF bond is much stronger than the HCl, HBr, and HI. Thus, dissociation of HF is nearly twice than that of the dissociation of HI. Okay, and we can understand why the HF bond is stronger. That is because of high electronegativity. These bond pairs are drawn closer to fluorine, and therefore H is more closer to the fluorine atom. So what happens? The bond length will reduce in comparison to the other bond length. So as we go down the group, these bond lengths will keep increasing because of the reduction in the electronegativity value, and therefore as the bond length is shorter, it would be a more stronger bond, and that is why HF is a more stronger bond in comparison to the other HX molecules. Then another thing that we discussed is the enthalpy of dehydration. Enthalpy of dehydration is also very high for the HF, and that we can easily understand because you also already know that fluorine being an electronegative atom, it shows hydrogen bonding. So when you dissolve it in water, it will have hydrogen bonding with the water molecule, and that's why it is very difficult for releasing the HF aqueous from the aqueous state to the gaseous state, because for that you require a higher energy or endothermic energy you need to supply in order to escape the HF from the highly associative hydrogen bonds that it forms with the aqueous solution. And that is why the HF molecule in its aqueous state is having a high enthalpy of dehydration. Okay, and then there is an unexpected low value for the electron affinity that we have already discussed, why you have a lower value of electron affinity for fluorine. So all these three factors kind of decrease the delta H total, negative value of the delta H total, and thereby you see a reduction in the delta H total for the HF in comparison to the HI, though the heat of hydration is very, very high for the fluorine atom. And that is why you see these tendency, and the hydroiodic acid is highly acidic in the case in aqueous solution in comparison to the HF. Okay, so I hope this particular point is clear to you. Moving further, the reducing property also is pretty clean to understand. Reduction property will depend upon the ease of availability of the hydrogen. So as we know, as we move down the group, the bond strength will decrease. Okay, so hydrogen would be easily available. So as you move down the group, the reducing power would be increasing. Okay. Now, boiling point, if you see, there is an usually as you move down the group, we know that the boiling point should increase because of the associative nature or the van der Waals interactions that are possible on account of increasing size. So here from HCl, HBr, NHI, you see an increase in the boiling point, but you see an abnormal increase in the case of HF. Okay, and that is because of the hydrogen bonding that it forms, the intermolecular hydrogen bonding that it forms. And this shape of this hydrogen bonding is kind of zigzag, one HF. ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഷേപ്പിലാണ്. It's not linear, it's not random, it is a zigzag form. So you will have different HF chain, HFN chain, okay, constituting the solid state ആയാലും liquid state ആയാലും even gaseous stateലും ഈ hydrogen bonded HFN you will find, but smaller n values you will find in the gaseous state as well. Okay, so because of this intermolecular hydrogen bonding and this particular structure that it adopts, they show an abnormally high boiling point in the case of HF. Moving on to the anomalous properties of fluorine. Okay, I'm going a little bit faster, so please, whatever doubts you have, write them down so that at the end of the class we are going to discuss that. Okay, sorry for doing like this because we have very less time, so we have to cover up certain things, so that is why I'm going like this. But you definitely can come up with all the doubts at the end of the class, so don't worry about that. Just write down whatever doubts you have, we'll discuss at the end of the class. Okay, so coming to the anomalous properties of the fluorine. Okay, as we discussed in every group, the anomalous property that the first element shows is basically because of the small size, the high electronegativity value, as well as the lack of d orbital. Okay, these are the three basic reasons why the first elements of each group is showing anomalous properties. Now, here I have jotted down few of the anomalous properties. So one of the anomalous property is that it is the most electronegative atom. Okay, fluorine is highly electronegative, so it is the most electronegative atom in the periodic table, and therefore it only shows a negative oxidation state. It shows no positive oxidation state. So all of the oxidation state exhibited by fluorine is because of the high electronegativity. It only shows a -1 oxidation state, but no positive oxidation state is shown by the fluorine atom. Now, fluorine is the most reactive among the halogens that we already discussed because F2 is the weakest, so it is easily cleavable, and therefore they are more prone to be reactive. Okay, so that is why fluorine is most reactive amongst the halogen atom. Okay, and again, another important thing is because of the high electronegativity of fluorine atom, they form hydrogen bonds. Okay, and that you will find in the HF. Okay, and that is the reason why it is showing a higher boiling point as well. Okay, so hydrogen bonding as an important phenomena that these fluorine shows in their hydrides because of the high electronegativity of the fluorine. Another important thing is the maximum covalency that the fluorine shows is only 1. Okay, that is easily understandable because fluorine is composed of 2s and 2p, right? So you have, if I quickly write down the structure, you will find that the electronic configuration looks something like this. Okay, so in the ground state, in case of fluorine, you have only one electron present, one unpaired electron. So it can form covalent bond with only one of the atom. Okay, so it can show a maximum covalency of only 1, because here you cannot excite any of the electron because you do not have a d subshell. So you cannot excite the electron. So maximum covalency possible in the case of fluorine is only 1. And that is why this point that the maximum covalency shown by fluorine is 1 because of the lack of d orbitals. Now, further, this point we have already discussed that HF is is a weak acid, even though fluorine is having a very high hydration energy value. This is abnormal property that it shows a very weak acid character compared to other HX molecules which are very highly acidic. Then salts of the HF, okay, that is fluorides, also show certain abnormalities, like silver fluorides. Okay, they are soluble. However, other silver halides, they are all insoluble in water. Similarly, calcium fluoride. Calcium fluoride is insoluble in water, but other calcium halides are all soluble in water. So it's an abnormal thing between a fluoride and the corresponding other halides. So it is an abnormal property that the fluoride salts shows. Then another thing is the fluoride compounds are ionic in nature. Okay, this is because of the high electronegativity and small size. They show more of the ionic property. Then they possess hydrogen bonding. Because of the hydrogen bonding, they are able to form molecules such as anions such as HF2 minus. Okay, so HF2 minus, okay, it's actually forming because an F minus is reacting with the HF to give you this particular thing. So basically what is happening is when because of the hydrogen bonding between this particular fluorine and this H, so here you can see the hydrogen bonding. So let me use the laser point. So here you see the hydrogen bonding. The HF is kind of hydrogen bonded to the fluoride ion, and this helps in the formation of this particular anion. Okay, and this anion is feasible only because of the formation of these kind of hydrogen bonding, and that's why you have this kind of compound being known, that is KHF2. But corresponding KHCl2 or KHBr2 is unknown because there is no hydrogen bonding, similar hydrogen bonding possible in the case of fluorine or bromine. It's only possible in the case of fluoride ion. So that is why you have the possibility of these kind of negatively charged anions. Okay, and then fluorides also have a very high tendency of complex ion formation. They can form a lot of complexes. They can form very easily. In comparison, the other halide have a lesser tendency to form complexes. Okay, and then probably the reason why it forms a better complex ion is because when it forms complex ion, it is acting as a ligand, and because of the small size, the central atom can accommodate these ligands in larger numbers. So probably that might be one reason why they have a higher tendency to form complex ions compared to the larger other halide ions. Now, fluorine, an important thing that you should note is that the sulfur can be formed in, that is SF6 compound is possible only with the fluorine atom. Okay, with other halogens like Cl, bromine, another, it cannot oxidize the sulfur to this higher oxidation state of +6, but only fluorine, because of its high electronegativity, it is able to oxidize and show its higher covalent oxidation state of +6. Okay, that is a very important property of the fluorine. Fluorine is able to help the central atom to achieve its maximum oxidation state. Then this thing you're pretty aware of, that they have the absence of d orbital, and therefore it doesn't form polyhalides. Like the I2 can form I2 can react with the I minus to form this kind of an ion. Okay, and this is possible because the lone pair coming from this particular thing can be donated into the d subshells of the I2 molecule, and that is why this particular polyhalides are possible in the case of iodine ayalum, bromine ayalum, Cl ayalum. Idilellam possible agunathu only because of the availability of d subshell. So similar, F3 minus is not possible because F doesn't have a d orbital which can accommodate these extra charge that is coming from the negatively charged ions. Okay, so these are all the various abnormal properties that are shown by fluorine atom. So one thing when I was checking through your test, I found is that just whenever you write about these anomalous property, you please go through these text. Number class, it's when we do it in class, we write it in very short points. Okay, and I might say a lot of things, but I might not have written everything on the thing, because I expect you that whenever I have taught it, the next day you go home and read those portions from those textbooks that are there. So I expect the same. So when you wrote the answer for anomalous property, most of you have written very short sentences like this. Please do not write like this. I can't give you mark on that. You have to read and find out examples for each of the anomalous and write something about it. Okay, don't write just single sentences and finish the answer. So please, that is why I constantly tell you, whenever I teach something, it's expected of you to go home and read it and make your own notes, so that when you represent your answer, you should represent it nicely. In the answer test, I'm just being lenient, but in examination, if you write like this, I'll reduce your mark considerably. So make sure you write these anomalous properties if they are asked in a proper way with examples. Okay. So last topic for today is the interhalogen compounds. Okay. So interhalogen compounds, or they are also called as interhalogens. So as I discussed previously, when I said that halogen shows the oxidation state of +4 or +6 is because of the formation of interhalogen or the halogen oxides. So interhalogen compounds are basically compounds that are formed by reaction of the compounds formed between two different halogen atoms. So each halogen combined with every other halogen to form compound among themselves, and these are called as interhalogens or interhalogen compounds. So when you write these interhalogen compounds, you write first the less electronegative halogen followed by the most electronegative halogen. Okay, naming also, the less electronegative atom halogen's name would come first and then the most electronegative atom. So interhalogen compounds, it is the reaction between it is a compound that is formed between two different halogens. So A is a halogen, X is a halogen. So a compound between A and X, okay, would be a interhalogen compound. So there are almost like 4 different types of interhalogen compound: of type AX, of type AX3, of type AX5, of type AX7. Okay, so as you can see, of AX type, you will have a CLF. It is a gaseous compound. So while I write this particular compound, the less electronegative atom is Cl. So that I have written first. So CLF. പേര് എഴുതുമ്പോൾ എങ്ങനെ എഴുതും? chlorine fluoride. Okay, how do you write chlorine fluoride? അതുപോലെ ഇത് നോക്ക്, BRF ല് BR is the least electronegative, so it is written first. പേര് എഴുതുമ്പോൾ എങ്ങനെ എഴുതും? Bromine fluoride. Okay, coming to this compound, CLF. Cl is the most less electronegative, so it is written first, and the most electronegative comes after. So ഇതിന്റെ പേര് എഴുതുവാണെങ്കിൽ chlorine trifluoride. Chlorine trifluoride. അതുപോലെ ഇത് bromine trifluoride. Ion Cl, I is the least electronegative, so it is iodine trichloride. Okay, similarly you have iodine trifluoride. അതുപോലെ AX5 നോക്കുമ്പോൾ you will have chlorine pentafluoride, bromine pentafluoride, iodine pentafluoride, then you have iodine heptafluoride, IF7. Okay, so these are the various interhalogen compounds being told. So in your compound, in your syllabus, it is mentioned that interhalogen compounds, basically you have to just study the general preparation and properties of the interhalogen compounds. The study of individual members is not required. So individual member in the studies is not required, so I'm not doing that. So I'll be just discussing with you the preparation and the general property of the interhalogen compounds. So coming to the preparation, they can be prepared by direct reaction between halogen. Halogen തമ്മിലുള്ള reaction you can easily make them, or by action of halogen on a lower interhalogen compounds. This you will understand when I say that. So here, this is an interhalogen compound which is formed by reaction of the two halogens. Okay, at 200 degrees centigrade, you have the formation of this chlorine fluoride. Okay, similarly, a case chlorine trifluoride form cheyanavengal, so it is a trifluoride. I'll make it more clear to you. It's a trifluoride. So what you see here is when you react chlorine with fluorine, you at a 300 degrees centigrade. So here you take a excess volume of the F2, so you get this trifluoride. Now this trifluoride can also be synthesized by treating of the halogen with a lower interhalogen. So lower interhalogen is CLF. So other thammilulla reaction you can make a higher interhalogen compound. Okay, so all these reactions you will see these values. So just two different interhalogens, they are reacted to form the two different halogens, they are reacted to give the interhalogen compounds. Okay, here it is done it in this kind of solvent, organic solvent, that is trichlorofluoromethane. Okay, that solvent at minus 45 degree, you can get IF, that is iodine fluoride. Okay, and here IF7 is formed by reaction of I2 with F2 at 250 to 300 degrees centigrade. It can also be formed by reaction of a halogen with another interhalogen compound to get this higher interhalogen compound. So these are the various methodologies, the usual methodologies used for preparing these interhalogen compounds. Now quickly, let us look into the general properties of the interhalogen compounds. There are never more than two different halogens. So നിങ്ങൾ ഞാനിപ്പം കാണിച്ച ഇന്റർഹാലോജൻ കമ്പൗണ്ട്സ് ശ്രദ്ധിച്ച് നോക്കുവാണെങ്കിൽ അതിലെല്ലാം രണ്ട് ടൈപ്പ് ഓഫ് ഹാലോജൻസേ ഉള്ളൂ. രണ്ടിൽ കൂടുതൽ ഹാലോജൻ ആറ്റംസ് ഇല്ല. പിന്നെ വേറൊരു കാര്യം നിങ്ങൾ നോട്ടീസ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്, ഈ ഹാലോജൻസ് തമ്മിൽ, ഈ ഹാലോജൻസ് ബീങ് ഇൻ ദ സെയിം ഗ്രൂപ്പ്, they do not have much electronegativity difference. Okay, and because of that, since the electronegativity difference between two different halogens is not much, the bond can never be ionic, because for bond to be ionic, the ionic character should be more than like 60 or 70%. Okay, for that to be achieved, you should have a very good electronegativity difference. But halogens being in the same family, they do not have much electronegativity difference. So Because of that, most of the bonding that is between the halogen atoms, they are all covalent in nature. So that is what written here. So bonds are all essentially covalent because of the small electronegativity difference. Now, if we compare the boiling point and melting point, they increases as the electronegativity difference increases, because you know that if electronegativity difference increases between the two halogen atoms in the interhalogen compounds, obviously their dipole moment will increase, and that will increase the associative nature of the molecule, and thereby increasing the melting and the boiling points. Coming to AX3 type of compound, the electronegativity difference is not too great. For higher valencies, they are shown by larger atoms such as Br and I, and with a smaller F atom. So let me go to that table and explain to you. So for these compounds, you will find all the variety of halogens. Okay, Cl ion, Br ion, I ion. So all variety you will find. But when it comes to higher version, that is AX5 and AX7, the central atom is needed to be very large. At the same time, the other halogen atom, that is the one which is in larger number, should be as small as possible. And that is why you have in AX5 type compound, it is all fluorides that is known. Even AX7 also, it is only fluorides known. That is because fluoride being smaller in size, they are they can be easily accommodated around this central atom. But if apart from fluorine, if it is chlorine or bromine, it cannot be easily accommodated around the central atom. Okay, because they are in the same family, so it is very difficult to accommodate them. Another important thing is fluorine being highly electronegative, they are able to make the central atom have a higher oxidation state. Okay, possible. Okay, this we have discussed already. Okay, so higher oxidation state is made possible by the fluorine atom. And that is why in the case of AX5 ialum, AX7 ialum, you only see fluorides being known. Then here, the interhalogen compounds are generally more reactive than halogens because the AX bond, that is interhalogen bond, okay, they are weaker in comparison to AA or XX bond. Okay, so that is why these bond interhalogen compounds are pretty reactive, and most of the reaction that is shown by halogens are shown by the interhalogen compounds. And here one of the reaction is hydrolysis of the interhalogen compound. So here iodine chloride is hydrolyzed with water to give you HCl plus a oxyacids of halogen. So here the less electronegative halogen actually forms the oxyacid. Okay, the other halogen will form the HX. Okay, so IMCl, it more electronegative is Cl, so it will form HX, that is HCl. Okay, however, the least electronegative atom, that is I, it will form the oxyacid, that is hypoiodous acid, that is HOI. Similarly here BRF3, that is bromine fluoride. Okay, let me correct this here. Okay, bromine fluoride. When these undergo hydrolysis, it forms so ഇതിൽ ഏറ്റവും electronegative in the fluorine, so it will form HX, that is HF will be formed. The bromine being positive, it form the other, that is the oxyacid of halogen, that is a bromic acid, because if you remember, you have different oxyacids of halogens possible: HOX, HOX2, HOX3, HOX4. Okay, this is hypohalous. This is halous acid. Okay, this is halic acid, and this is perhalic acid. Perhalic acid. So here, in this case, what is formed is a bromic acid, because halogen is bromine, so it is a bromic acid. Okay, apart from that, interhalogen compounds will fluorinate many of the metal oxides and metal halides and metals into corresponding fluorides. So that is what you find here. You have the oxide of uranium being fluorinated using bromine fluoride. Similarly, you can convert this uranium fluoride into a higher version of uranium with a higher oxidation state. Fluorination is done here. So for fluorination of oxide ialum, another metal halide ialum, or metals ialum, we will use the corresponding interhalogen compounds. Okay, so these are the various general properties that are shown by the halogen, interhalogen compounds. So I hope you have